Let me read to you a passage from the 11th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 28 to 30. It's the Gospel for Wednesday of the second week of Advent. St. Matthew writes, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That's from Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30, for Wednesday of the second week of Advent. We are led to think of happiness. What do I mean? Well, at this point, the Venerable David Lung Tok is an Australian Buddhist monk practicing in the Tibetan tradition. He was born and raised in Melbourne. He graduated from Monash University Law School in 1978, after which he travelled extensively throughout Asia and India. During this time, he became enamoured of Eastern philosophy and meditation, an interest which led him to explore more deeply the teachings of Buddha. He became a Buddhist monk in Nepal in 1981 and lived and studied at Nalanda Monastery in France before returning to India in 1986. And there he taught Buddhist philosophy and meditation for many years in Kathmandu, in New Delhi, and in Bodh Gaya. He completed a 3-year appointment as director of Tibetan Shedrup Ling Monastery near Bendigo in central Victoria, Australia. Following this, he resided in Sydney, pursuing his practice of meditation. So presumably, he knows what he is talking about in matters of Buddhist practice. He is reported to have stated that Buddhists say everything comes from the mind. If we train our mind properly, happiness will be the result. It seems that Buddha himself said this. We are what we think. Buddha, it seems, said, all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world, he said. David Lung Tok describes meditation as a method to make the mind relaxed and peaceful. Tranquility gives rise to clarity from which understanding and wisdom grow. This wisdom, explains Lung Tok, allows us to observe that negative emotions such as anger and desire cause all of our problems. However, by applying antidotes, it is possible to free ourselves from their harmful influence. So, to overcome anger, Buddhists cultivate the practice of patience. To counteract desire, say desire for wealth or status or a lover, one reflects upon the impermanent and transitory nature of life. Similarly, positive behaviors such as acting in a kind and loving way, or as Buddhists say, practicing loving kindness, give rise to joyful experiences, and we should therefore cultivate them. From what I know of Buddha, Lung Tok seems to be a reliable disciple and transmitter of the creed. The search for personal happiness drives the quest. Desires are at the root of the problem. Meditation is a principal instrument. The solution comes with radical detachment. Enlightenment is the goal. That's in Buddhism. Now, in all of this, obviously, there is no ultimate thou. No ultimate you to whom the person is related or whom the person addresses. What do I mean? Well, the great French Catholic theologian Henri de Lubac, who lived from 1896 to 1991, gave extensive consideration to Buddhism, publishing at least 3 major studies on the subject. What, we may ask, had de Lubac to say on this? He said much, of course, but Let us take a summary statement by a friend of his, a fellow giant in modern theology, Hans Urs von Balthasar. In his book, The Theology of Henri de Lubac, von Balthasar summarizes some of de Lubac's insights on Buddhism. There is, he writes, no true thou who could be loved as such. And so Buddhistic love remains ultimately without an object. Love remains a preliminary stage because ultimately there is no opposition of persons. He continues, all the insufficiency and the falsity of the Buddhist religion stems primarily from this. What then is at stake is the human person, which is sacrificed for the ideal of happiness. The problem, in Balthasar's words, is that in Buddhism the human person is dissolved in the unreality of an idealistic monism. As summarized by Balthasar, for de Lubac, only the self-revealing God guarantees the eternal worth of the human person. Christianity offers the fulfillment of the person through the adoration of God. Well, in his book entitled Crossing the Threshold of Hope, 1994, Pope John Paul II, himself a friend of de Lubac, whom he raised to the cardinalate, says this of Buddhism. The enlightenment experienced by Buddha comes down to the conviction that the world is bad, necessitating a break with the ties that join us to external reality. Liberation from evil comes from detachment from and indifference to the world, which is bad. Critically, it does not come from union with God. Buddhism is born of an awareness of the evil in man's attachment to the world, while the Christian religion is born of the revelation of the living God. Now, all of this is meant to bring us to our gospel passage today, which I read earlier, in which our Lord tells us very clearly wherein lies true happiness. It does mean, of course, detachment from the world, but so as to come to Him who is to be the living object of our heart and our life. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30. Therein lies the happiness of man. There are numerous answers to the fundamental question of the happiness of man, and Buddhism is one of the most noteworthy. It is Buddhism's outstanding achievement to have identified attachments to the world as a source of human unhappiness and to have proposed techniques of cultivating detachment. Other answers have been given, but all these pale before the grand revelation of God who has intervened to declare his answer to man's questions. The answer is to listen to his divine Son. This is my Son, my chosen. Listen to him, was God's revelation on the high mountain. Luke chapter 9, verse 35. Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. In him we find our rest.